You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
They told me I need another cold open. I never remember these damn things. I have a Lego Batman. Does he work for a cold open? Stay tuned for the damn Wickline show. I'm actually turned away at the last minute there, but the reason I didn't have a cold open is because last night it got kind of sad. I grew up in LA, born and bred, Southern California, and I was a huge Dodger fan, still am, but as a kid, for me, the sound of summer was the voice of Vin Scully. I would watch the games when they were on the TV, and when they weren't, I would lay in the dining room on the floor by our big radio, and I would listen to the games. And I would listen to Don Drysdale and Jerry Doggett, but mainly I was listening for Vin Scully. And nothing made me happier than hearing him say, "It's time for Dodger baseball." And that was a big part of growing up for me. That sound, his voice. I heard someone refer to him as a storyteller. And I think all the major influences in my life are storytellers. And that's what I consider myself, a storyteller. My father was a storyteller, even though he was a pressman and he just, did it. He was basically labored every day of his life. But when he had a chance to bend your ear a bit, he would tell you a story. And that grew into the other influences in my life, like Stan Lee and Vin Scully and a few others, Mel Brooks, Alfred Hitchcock, the people that kind of guided me towards what I do and the type of writing I do and stuff. But Vin was summer, like I said. He was like an uncle that would come to visit, and you'd watch the game with him. And that was the thing, is that it was like you were watching the game with him, because he knew when to talk and when to be quiet. He knew when to tell a story and when to let the excitement of the game take over. And he had some of the greatest calls in sports history. He called Hank Aaron's 715th home run, the one that passed Babe Ruth's record. He called Joe, he did football calls, and he called Joe Montana throwing to the back of the end zone to Dwight Clark in the famous Super Bowl game. That was Vin. And the best one ever, the one that always sticks out to me, was the first game of the World Series in 1988 with the Dodgers versus the Oakland A's, and the A's were way favored. I mean, the Dodgers weren't supposed to have a chance. And their best player, a guy named Kirk Gibson, was hurt. He played the NL Championship Series on one bad leg. He could barely get around. And the bottom of the ninth, the Dodgers were down 4-3. Mike Davis was pinch running off of first, ended up stealing second, but Tommy sent Kirk Gibson to bat. And you watch him, and he's hobbling as he's heading up there. And he ends up... They compared it to the movie The Natural, the home run at the end. And in a lot of ways it was. But what made it perfect was Vin Scully's call. Because it was well into the count. Kirk had fouled a couple balls off, and then one foul he tried to run out, and you could see that he could not run. He was on two bad legs at that point. And then the pitch came in, and Gibby just connected. And Vin said, long drive ball to right field, and she is gone. And then Vin stopped talking. And he let the excitement of Dodger Stadium crowd just have the air for a solid minute. And it was just, I remember standing there because I had actually walked out of the room and walked back in when it happened. And it was just so breathtaking. And then when he finally did speak again, and Gibson is running around the bases, and he's hobbling, he's fist pumping. He is just so excited. Vin says, in a year of improbables, the impossible has happened. And it just was the perfect line at the perfect time. And just about every game I watched with Vin Scully was that way. He just always knew what to say. He talked about, it's funny, whoever the player was, he could have been the most nobody player ever. A guy who was part of the Montreal Expos Farm League that had, been, had never been to the majors, would never be in the majors again. He had been up there for like one at bat. And there was Vin had a story about the guy, had a personal story about how he grew up on a farm and how his dad had cut a hole in a tree so he could throw the pitches, or just some story like that. A story about, I was watching some replay of his stuff, and he was talking about how this one guy as a kid had someone come out to fix a fence, and they had an actual wolf with them. And he tried to pet the wolf, and the wolf jumped on and told the story about this kid being attacked by a wolf while it was in a baseball. And then he would stop and call the play, the pitch, just outside, and ball 2-2-1. And he'd go back to the story. And he had this ability to tell you this story and give you a personal connection to a ball player from an opposing team that you'll probably never hear of again. But in that moment, he celebrated that player. He gave you a connection to that player. And that's the thing that Vin Scully could do. He made the game special. He made the game personal. He invited you to sit down with him and play and to watch it. And it was a major part of my childhood. Like I said, from age 7 through my teens, I never missed a game. That's what I watched it, or I listened to it on the radio. And the other guys would take some innings, but it was always Vin. That's the one I wanted to hear. He took the first couple innings, and he took the last couple innings. They're 3-3. They let Jerry Doggett do the middle ones, or Don Drysdale, or whatever. But Vin was the guy you wanted to hear. And you look out there online, you can hear some of his incredible calls, and they are amazing. And having heard last night that he had passed, and he's 94 years old, and I know that 94 is amazing to make it that long, But there are some people, when you hear they pass, it's always going to be too soon, And I know for a lot of you guys out there, this doesn't mean anything. We're not a sports talk channel, but he was so much more than just a voice of a game. You know, he brought it into our homes. He made it personal. He made it something special. And I will always remember that. And I will always hear his voice when I think of baseball. I will hear his calls. And that's just, you know, with him passing, it just feels like part of baseball died yesterday. So, all right, guys. Thanks for letting me wax a little philosophical upon that to pay a little tribute. He called plays up until 2016. So I want to say he was 88 when he finally retired. So yeah, he retired 6 years ago, and that was that. But at 88, he didn't miss a beat. You know, he didn't quit because his calls weren't as good. He quit because the travel got too much. His final year with the Dodgers, the 2016 season, he only called the home games, except for the final 3 games of the season, which were up in San Francisco, and he went ahead and made that trip so that he would close out the season with the team. But yeah, so he called baseball well until he was 88 years old. So, all right, let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we will talk about Batgirl getting canceled, some of the rumors that are going up with the WB, and so let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back and talk Warner Brothers. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. And stick around after the show today. We have Comics Collectibles with Rex and John and AR Comics. And they got some pretty cool stuff coming up, including a signed Alice Cooper comic, signed by Mr. Cooper himself. Dan, I think you should call your breaks WikiLeaks. That's not bad. That's not bad. So, all right. We're going to talk about Warner Brothers, but the feeling is that we're only talking about the tip of the iceberg right now. There was a lot of speculation coming out of San Diego Con that their panel was supposed to be a lot bigger than it turned out to be. The fact that it was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Black Adam trailer, and it was the Shazam family and Shazam and the Fury of the Gods 2 trailer, and that was it. You know, there had been reports of Henry Cavill showing up. There was, up until about 2 weeks beforehand, they were going to show footage of Batgirl, is what we're hearing. But you have to keep in mind that there has been a major regime change at Warner Brothers, with Discovery having purchased them, David Zaslav coming in, and now Alan Horn being hired as a consultant. Now, Alan Horn, of course, comes from Marvel, but he used to be co-chairman of Warner Brothers before that. And they're trying to cut and save some money. That's the big thing we're doing right now. And because of the buyout, there is this window of time where they can write off certain things and get rid of the debt and not have to carry the debt over. And two of the things they decided to write off were basically Batgirl and Scoob holiday special. Batgirl was originally a $70 million project that ballooned to $90 million because of COVID reshoots and stuff. The Scoob movie was a sequel to the Scoob animated movie, and it was a $40 million project. Both of them had completed principal. They were in editing, in post-production. And both of them were both of the creative teams were surprised to find out that they were being shelved. But it's more than just, you know, they're being knocked off schedule or anything. What they're doing by taking these tax breaks on these movies is they're making it that they can never release them. I'm in complete dark about the Batgirl movie. Was this a fresh standalone movie or a spinoff of the TV show? This was going to be a movie made specifically for HBO Max. And this was the last regime's idea. The idea was that they would take about $70 million and make movies specifically for HBO Max. This was the same guy who also wanted to debut movies on HBO Max and did so with Dune and Mortal Kombat and Godzilla vs. Kong and Wonder Woman, and it did not go over well with anybody. And he's gone. So the movie was being directed by the two directors who did the recent Miss Marvel series over at Marvel, also Bad Boys for Life. It was starring Leslie Grace, but it was fitting in this new direction they were going because it would have J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon from the Snyderverse or whatever, the Justice League movie. But it would also have Michael Keaton as Batman, which is the change they were making in the Flash movie. Now, we heard late last week that they had moved the Flash later, so they're reshooting a couple scenes in Aquaman or the Aquaman 2, Aquaman and the Lost City, because of they didn't make sense anymore because Michael Keaton appeared in the Aquaman sequel, and without it taking place after The Flash, it didn't make sense to audiences. So they were reshooting those scenes with Ben Affleck instead as his version of Bruce Wayne, instead of Michael Keaton, which they were swapping in the Flash movie. Now, Batgirl would then have had Michael Keaton playing kind of a mentor to Batgirl. So you can see that that would be a problem. You would need to either hold it out until after the Flash movie or reshoot certain scenes with Ben Affleck. And they were already $20 million over the original budget. And Zaslav, when he came in, had said that he wanted the DC movies to be tentpole movies. He didn't want little movies. So the Batgirl movie and some others that are in talks now don't fit the mold that they want to do with DC. So there's a possibility of other big cuts coming. And Batgirl and Scoob were just the first that we heard about. There's a lot of speculation going on now. The Batgirl movie was completed shooting. They had actually put together a test screening and were going back in and editing it. Now, there's been conflicting things. What JD just posted is one article referred to it as irredeemable. I've heard other reports saying that wasn't the case. So I've heard conflicting reports on that. And I think we'll hear conflicting reports on it because we're never going to see this movie. Or if we do, it's because it's going to somehow leak and show up on YouTube. And Warner Brothers will forget to do copyright infringement stuff on it. Because they can't make any money on it. They can't release it for profit if they take this tax break. So they're essentially killing. Yeah, Zaslav discovered the anti-life equation. Very true, Josh. The acts of Zaslav. Now, keep in mind, he already killed the proposed Wonder Twin movies that was in the works that had the actor from Riverdale as Zan. So, he came in chopping. What's going to happen next, though, there's a lot of speculation now. If you look over, the Wrap right now is talking about the speculation, and some of the stuff they're hearing is that there's going to be like a 70% layoff of HBO Max, and that there's going to be a merger between HBO Max and Discovery Plus, and there's a good chance we're going to get less new product for HBO Max, that a lot of it is going to be more of what Discovery Plus has. So you're going to get your Magnolia shows and your baking shows and stuff like that. And then they'll still have some, and that HBO will be more, showing movies and stuff, and then doing some original programming, but not at the level that they were starting to move at. Now, again, that's not confirmed. But Warner Brothers Discovery is having their first investors meeting tomorrow. So, yeah, a lot of people think that quite a bit's going to happen in the next 24 hours. The whole thing is that supposedly they're trying to cut a huge amount of money to make the deal profitable. And every time, a certain number of billions and something like a $70 million movie and a $40 million movie starts getting them some of that money back. Now, in all of this chaos, it's interesting to note that Deadline is reporting that the Joker sequel, Joker Folie à Deux, I'll figure out how to pronounce that, not only is not getting axed, but we now have an actual release date for it. They got a release date of October 4th, 2024. So while we're trying to figure out what's going on with all these other things, that's out the window. If they kill Peacemaker, I will hunt them down and tweak their noses so hard. I'd rather Warner shelve Ben Affleck. Okay. If I can have Super Friends and Iron Chef in the same place, that's a win for me. All right. See, Josh has got the right attitude, but yeah. So what's happening is totally up in the air. Now, everything we've heard up until now is that David Zaslav wants to turn Disney into Marvel, wants to follow the Marvel formula, which explains why he got Alan Horn, who helped put together Marvel along with Kevin Feige. Now, they don't have their Kevin Feige, and Alan Horn is not the long-term solution. Alan Horn is 79 years old. He's already retired from Disney, from Marvel, and has come back out of retirement to help them do this. Well, what is this going to look like? And they're restructured everything to create a Kevin Feige type position. And again, that's not Alan Horn. Alan Horn is just a consultant. So what's going to happen? I think there's going to be a lot of retraction of DC properties. I mean, if you look out there, there's a lot of stuff that's been talked about. There's talk of a Black Canary movie. There's the Blue Beetle movie that's already been well shot. You know, a lot of that's done. There's talk of a Static Shock movie, an animated Milestone movie. I mean, they just talked about both the Milestone movie and the Static Shock movies, the animated Milestone movie and the Static Shock movie, in the documentary that came out this weekend for Milestone Generations. I don't think they're safe. I think a lot of that stuff is on the chopping blocks. I think the Batman sequel, the Joker sequel, and Black Adam, Shazam, and Aquaman 2, that's what's safe. The Flash is where it gets tricky. Because the company, the Flash sets up a lot of stuff that now Voilà do. Okay. Voilà do actually means a shared psychosis. Basically, an insanity shared. So, and that's why there's supposed to be Lady Gaga in it as Harley Quinn. But again, a lot of that speculation. I lost my train of thought. Damn you, JD. So yeah, the Flash movie is supposed to set up where everybody was going. The problem is they may not be going there anymore. You know, the new not JD artist, JD producer JD. Where the Flash movie is going was to basically rejigger the whole universe and was going to give us Michael Keaton's Batman as the new Batman, which never made sense to me because you already have a 40-something-year-old Batman. Why would you suddenly want a 70-something-year-old Batman? So now if you think about it, if they're taking Michael Keaton out of Aquaman and they're getting rid of Batgirl, the only other place that Michael Keaton was showing up is Aquaman, or is The Flash. And there's a lot of good buzz from the test screenings of the Flash movie, that they're saying it's a really good movie, but Ezra Miller, and they don't know what to do, and that's why they've pushed it off. But in pushing it off, now they have to either do reshoots or just take things out of the lineup. So, yeah, Josh, they can stick with whatever Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, and Black Adam set up and just go from there. That is possible, but I think they still want to put the Flash movie out there. They've spent $200 million on the Flash. And while I agree with JD, I'm not necessarily I wasn't necessarily an Ezra Miller fan prior to everything that we found out. And now since all the weirdness and stuff, yeah, I'm good with him just going away. But yeah, they're trying to figure out what to do with this $200 million tentpole movie that is supposed to be really good. And they don't know if they can actually put it out or what they can do with it and how that's going to affect things. So basically, this guy Zaslav and Warner and Discovery bought what they thought was what they could turn into a Marvel money-making machine, and it's completely in crisis. You've got 2 movies coming out tied to the Shazam universe that, yeah, it did well, the first Shazam movie, but it's not huge. You've got actors that people want. You've got split fan bases. You've got one group over here that wants Zack Snyder's version of all the characters to stick around. You've got other people that want to change. And, oh, my God, let's go with Michael Keaton. It's like, again, a 70-year-old actor who doesn't care about the movies either. He came out the other day and said he's never watched a full Marvel movie or DC movie in his life. He has better things to do. Is that who you want to rest your franchise on? Do you bring back Henry Cavill that everybody seems to want back, yet other people go, oh my God, Man of Steel was the worst movie ever. Oh my God, Man of Steel was great. And there's just so much division in the fan base that I don't know if Warner Brothers knows what the hell to do. Just deepfake Ezra out with Grant Gustin's face. Oof. Yeah, I don't know if they could do that. They could reshoot, but you're talking about it's not like with, what was the name of the movie? Everybody's Millions or something, where they replaced Kevin Spacey with Christopher Plummer. Because what they did was they just reshot. It was the only thing they could do. Kevin Spacey had become so toxic that they spent the money to reshoot. And not only did it, did it work, but Christopher Plummer won an award for it before he passed. Then you have something like Death on the Nile, where you have Armie Hammer, whose reputation went to hell, and he's a major part of the movie. So it's not just reshooting a few scenes, and you've got all these huge actors in it. You've got Gal Gadot and Letitia Wright, and just down the line, the actor who was playing Poirot and the director. He's one of my favorites, too. Why can't I think of his name? He directed the first Thor movie. Kenneth Branagh, thank you. So you'd have to get all these people back to reshoot scenes, and you'd have to get the ship rebuilt So it just didn't make sense financially to be. So what they did was they sat on the movie for as long as they could, and then they put it out quietly, never mentioning Armie Hammer in any of the in the promotional stuff, and showing him just little bits in the trailers. JD says, crazy thought, but since I'm willing to test a good chunk of Flash movie as CGI, I would refurbish it in a 3D animated feature, looking into Warner Brothers since most of the CG assets are already built. But a CG feature is not going to do the amount of money that a Flash movie could have done if Ezra Miller hadn't gone crazy. And like I said, they've already spent $200 million. How much more do they want to spend on it? I mean, there's some point where burying it may be the most cost-efficient thing. You know, if they could do the same tax break thing with the Flash as they did with Batgirl, maybe they would do that. I mean, it's a huge thing, but yeah, that's... Well, needless to say, I think it's going to be interesting over the next 24 hours to see how much of these reported layoffs and shakeups are going to happen, what projects are going to get killed, what happens to HBO Max and Discovery Plus. Will HBO just end up going back to being like HBO, where you have movies on it and a couple series like Perry Mason and The Sopranos and stuff like that, and everything else is, you know, brought in from other that, or will we end up with them? I mean, that's the thing, is we really don't know what's going to happen and how they look at what's going to make them money. David Zaslav was known for turning Discovery around and doing these low-cost, unscripted shows that about home rebuilding and cooking and stuff like that. And now it's all up in the air what he's going to do. Do we start vetting our actors better moving forward? I think you have to. I think you absolutely have to. Or maybe it's part of the studio and less the director. Because if you think about it, most of the actors involved with DC right now were brought in by the directors. Where you look at Marvel, and they're all through the studio has say. You know, Kevin Feige is constantly talking to people, and you hear it all the time, like, oh, you know, this guy had a meeting. Keanu Reeves had another meeting with Marvel, just touching base. Marvel is always figuring out who they want to hire, and they're constantly having meetings with people. And they're vetting these people, and they're, you know, well, DC, you know, you had the problem with Ezra Miller. You had the Amber Heard thing going on, and we still don't know what they're going to do about that. Are they just going to, have they cut her part down so small that they're hoping no one's going to notice? Is that a character they want to rewrite out, recast, and just have, you know, digitally impose them in? It's wild, you know. There's so much up in the air right now having to do with Warner Brothers and just what a mess it is. But the problem is that Warner Brothers isn't coming out and going, and maybe they will tomorrow. Maybe that's what the investor meeting is, that they're going to come out and go, okay, this is what we're going to do. You know, Aquaman's going to come out. We're taking out the Keaton stuff, putting Ben Affleck in. Maybe we're digitally removing Amber Heard. Maybe we're keeping her. This is the slate of movies we're going to do. These are the ones we're not going to do. We're only going to make big tentpole movies, and we'll do a couple TV series on HBO Max, and that'll be it. You know, at least then if they come out and they tell us what they're doing, then the speculation dies down and fans can start knowing what to get excited for and what not to. I think that's the big problem right now, is that there really isn't any rhyme or reason to what they're doing. And we keep hearing of these changes, and they, and again, the fan base is so split. Ben Affleck shows up to reshoot the stuff for the Aquaman, and half the fan base is going, yay, we're getting the Snyderverse back. And the other half is going, why the hell would you want the Snyderverse back? It was all dark and gloomy. So it really needs a direction. And they need to come out and specifically say what they're doing. That's going to be the big thing that they really have to do. Producer JD says, I don't think you can really predict what's going to happen to a young kid when they go from struggling hopeful to rich and famous. It's a powerful intoxicant. You get a good point there. Did we know Ezra Miller was going to be crazy? Okay, I think we did. You look in that guy's eyes and it was... But overall, no, you don't know. Just like you don't know that Amber Heard is going to become Amber Heard. Producer JD says, prediction, Ezra Miller's comeback will start by doing a small, heartwarming film with Shia LaBeouf. And Armie Hammer, probably. Yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap up the Warner Brothers talk, and we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, there's one other bit of news to talk about, and then we'll do a little bit on Only Murders in the Building, which had a new episode drop yesterday, and we'll go from there. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
There's a super new way to support your friends over at The Experience. Head over to YouTube and send us a super chat, a super sticker, or a super thanks. We'll be super grateful for your support, and then keep an eye out as we launch membership services over on YouTube. It'll be a great way to get first look access at new content and shows before anybody else. Keep your eyes peeled and make sure you're following us on YouTube.
There are already people out there saying release the Batgirl cut. So, Josh, it's already happening. So, no, if they do this and take the tax cut, they can never release it in any for-profit way. So, All right. This is the Dan Wickline Show. We are going to continue forward on our mishmash of topics. Yes, I'm borrowing that from Miss Jen's show. Stick around after this for Comics Collectibles with John and Rex and AR Comics. They have some great stuff lined up. Also, keep in mind that there will be no show tomorrow. I apologize for that. But as you know, I've been dealing with some medical stuff, and I will be actually at a hospital doing a bunch of tests tomorrow for hopefully moving things forward. So while you guys are thinking, damn it, Dan's not here to annoy me for an hour, somebody's going to be poking and prodding me at that time, so it'll be fair. All right, let's move on. Before we get to Only Murders in the Building, which I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of time to talk about, but I do want to mention that an announcement came out about She-Hulk, and it's actually going to premiere later than expected. Originally, it was going to premiere on Wednesday, August 17th, but they've now moved it to Thursday, August 18th. And it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be out on Thursdays. Now, this might be to set up a differentiation between that and Andor, which will be coming out in September, and overlapping the two. So we'll have one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, which is what I thought they were doing with Kenobi when they premiered it on a Friday, but that was just to go with the Star Wars Day thing. So this just came out today that they're moving it to Thursday instead of Wednesday. So if you were clearing your schedule for on the 17th to watch She-Hulk, got to wait till the 18th now. So, all right. Also, I just caught in the wiki leak. Now, see, that's not going to work, JD. I'm sorry. There's reports that Warner Brothers has also removed certain shows that were labeled as HBO Max originals from HBO Max, and they might be moving them to other platforms to make money. I don't know. But stuff like Moonshot, Superintelligence, The Witches, An American Pickle, the Lockdown, Charm City Kings are all coming off. And then there's also reports that, where is it? That the Harry Potter movies are coming off of the platform as well. So they may be leasing those out to another streaming service. So this might be how they start trying to make some money back by taking some of their original content and putting it elsewhere. All right, let's talk about the latest episode of Only Murders in the Building. Now, I absolutely love this show. It is entertaining. It is funny. It is a sitcom I can sit through because it's also a murder mystery. But this is also the first week that I have a complaint. This episode, it kind of parallels first season because in season 1, the 7th episode was dedicated to Theo Demas. And that is Nathan Lane's deaf son, Theo, played by James Caverly. And while that episode was done as a silent episode because the character was deaf, this one, they didn't do that, but they had him working with Selena Gomez's Mabel character, who doesn't know American ASL, and trying to communicate and stuff like that. So that was an interesting point of view. My problem with the series, and this will be the first complaint that I've really done about the series, is that it doesn't feel like they're doing as much of the murder mystery aspect as we are getting a drama. The first season, they gave us clues, and it felt like a real murder mystery because they gave us clues and they gave us suspects, and we eliminated suspects, which that's standard. For the last few episodes, it's broken away from that. You know, we had It's hard to make complaints about the show before they make them in the show itself. That is true. It is a very self-aware show. I mean, the fact that in season 1, they actually brought in fans of the podcast to help them figure out the murder mystery was brilliant. But see, that's one of the things that they've really kind of dropped, is that they're not talking about doing the podcast as much. There's not as much of Oliver actually recording things. They're not, actually in the on the microphone, stuff like that. That's become such a small part of it, and it's more about the drama with these individual characters that they're kind of losing what really made the show unique to me. And that's not saying I'm not enjoying it. It's still a great show, and I loved the episode. It was after the episode I went, we're really not getting the clues as much anymore. I mean, this whole episode really focused on, we got maybe one clue at the end of it. We got the detective came back, and we got to meet, Mabel and Theo working together. But we spent a lot of time with Mabel's past, and a lot of this series, this season, has been about Mabel's past. And we got to meet Mabel's dad, who was played very well by Mark Consuelos, who is the husband of talk show lady. JD took over Regis and what used to be Regis and Kathy Lee. Then it was Regis and her, and now it's her and Kelly Ripa. Yeah, Mark Consuelo is Kelly Ripa's husband. But he did a really good job playing Mabel's father. We got a little depth into her character. So from a dramatic point of view and learning about the characters, it was a great episode. But we're really not getting, the last couple episodes, we're not really getting the clues. We're not really giving more suspects. And here we are, 7 episodes of 10 in, and there really isn't any good suspects. Josh says, after the DNA twist a few episodes ago, I turned to my girlfriend and said, this show doesn't need this. It's getting soap opera pretty quick. Like, yeah. And the thing is that that was episode 5. That ended episode 5. By the end of episode 7, we still don't have the answer. The DNA thing is still a question. So that hasn't been solved. We had the whole thing with Charles and his father and the painting, and we haven't talked about that or the artist or anything in a while. We had an episode that focused on Alice, Cara Delevingne. I never remember how to pronounce that. And then she doesn't show up at all this episode. It's just really kind of odd that they are doing more drama and less mystery. So I'm hoping that, 8, 9, and 10, we're going to get back to the mystery. It's going to be great. And the fact that we're already renewed for a season 3, and I'm not giving up on this show. I still love it. I still enjoy the hell out of it. But yeah, it's felt like they've gone a little more dramatic and a little less murder mystery. We've lost some of the murder mystery elements, and they've, like I said, it feels like they've totally dropped the podcast aspect. Which, I mean, we had one episode that focused on the rival podcast, but we really haven't seen them doing the podcast at all. Every once in a while the fans show up, but never, Obviously, it was Amy Schumer. It has to be this time. The one person we'd never suspect. That's well, they did that to us last time with the girlfriend, but they introduced her and they made her a bigger character, and we're really not getting, like I said, any new suspects. They gave us Amy Schumer in the beginning, then we kind of lost her, and then we had the new head of the building group, and then she was gone as a suspect, and we had the cat guy for a while, but we really haven't gone back to him, and we had the waiter across the street, but I don't think he was a real serious suspect. So we really haven't had a new suspect in a while other than Alice. And Alice would be way too obvious at this point. It's more stalker than murder mystery. But I don't even know if it's supposed to be her. We had the ex-boyfriend from season 1 who just got name thrown away. It's like, oh yeah, well that's not going to work out. So we're doing other things now. It's like, what? So again, as much as I absolutely enjoy the show, and I think all the acting on it is great, we really have lost the murder mystery, and we've lost the podcast aspect. And I really hope we get back to that. It's like they'll take an episode and they'll bring us something, and then completely, it's like Jan, the murderer from the first. We had her for one episode, or part of one episode, then really big in another episode. And then he uses his stunt double to break up with her. We don't hear anything from her this episode. The whole Brazos subplot, that he was going to be on Brazos. We had the initial conversation. We had him going to shoot. And then we had his last day on set. So, unless Michael Rappaport's detective is the killer, there really hasn't been another character introduced that really works as the bad guy. So, yeah, I'm complaining. I'll probably have to sit down and just rewatch it before the next couple episodes and see if there's something I'm missing. But still enjoying it. Still looked forward to it yesterday. Thought it was a fun episode, and then I started going, wait a minute. What clues did we really get out of this? No. We just found out that Mabel likes to turn puzzles over. That was about it. Maybe we eliminated one suspect. I won't say who, because producer JD hasn't seen it yet, but I'll let him watch it before. Yeah, but yeah, I think we need them to move back into the format properly. So, all right, guys, we got a whole hour out of that. So, all right, so we'll find out more about Warner Brothers during their investment meeting tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow, but I'll be back next week. But if I get a chance and something big breaks, I might do a video and I'll send it to them. They can run it whenever they want just for information, but we'll see if anything really big breaks. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Have a great weekend. Thank you all for coming in. JD, thanks for running the board. The other JD, thanks for chiming in. Josh, everyone have a great time, and we'll see you next week. Stick around for Comics Collectibles. Good night, everybody.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at the Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.